So welcome to your fiscal year 23 Demonstration Grants for Indian Children and Youth Program, Native American Teacher Retention Initiative, Grant Competition webinar. So this is guidance for prospective applicants. And you'll hear us throughout today referring to this grant program as NATRI. That's the acronym for the Native American Teacher Retention Initiative. So just a little bit of logistics as we get going today. All of you are going to be muted throughout today's webinar. However, we do want your questions. You can either pop into the Q&A button that is on your screen or in the chat. We'll take questions from both areas. And you can pop those questions in as they occur. And when we get to each of our question sections, we'll pull those out and go through as many as possible today. So make sure and just pop them in as we're going so that when we do get to the question and answer section, they're already there and ready. We are also recording today's webinar, and it will be posted on the OIE website. This is the second pre-application webinar. So the first pre-application webinar recording is already posted there, as well as a copy of this slide deck is already posted there. If you have any technical issues as you go throughout today, feel free to hop into the chat. If maybe you're having any audio or visual issues, hop into the chat and I'll be happy to help you. Otherwise, if for any reason you get disconnected today, please reach out via email at oie@seiservices.com and we'll help get you reconnected. With us today, we have Dr. Donna Savis-Burns, the OIE Discretionary Group Leader, as well as Donna Bussell, your NATRI Competition Manager. And they'll be taking you through all of the great information about the NATRI Grant Competition today.
Great. We do, as Sarah said, have a lot to go over. So let's get started. As you can see with our agenda, thank you so much for being here and your interest in the NATRI brand new program with OIE, the Office of Indian Education. We are going to take some time today and go over the competition overview and taking a look at the purpose of the program, who is eligible, as well as the funding expectations or estimates. We'll go over the absolute and competitive preference priorities, take a look at the selection criteria, give you some application instructions, and some tips and resources, submitting applications, and like I said, a bunch of resources for you. So you will not walk away empty-handed after today's session. Next slide. Some of the learning objectives we hope that you will take away from here is that you're learning about what is actually in that package for this program and understand what those application requirements. So we'll take you and walk you through each of those parts. And there will be a logic model, a slide on all kinds of resources if you choose to use a logic model with your application. Understand the selection criteria, understand what types of forms that we have and will need you to supply and upload, understand the common components of applying for a federal grant overall, and taking a look to provide you guys, the prospective applicants, with the opportunity to submit any questions that you have. So we will have some breaks throughout the session to give you time to ask and throw them into the chat or the Q&A, and we promise we will get to those. Next slide. So we like to take a look to see which one of you applies. So who is joining us today? Synergy will be popping in a poll for you. There it is. And this is going to help us understand the pool of potential applicants for this competition. Sarah, any hints that you want to give them?
Absolutely. So if you are looking for the poll, for most of you joining from a computer, it should have just popped up magically in the middle of your screen to answer. If you are joining us from a mobile device, though, sometimes you have to look for it a little. So if you just swipe from right to left, often that will pop that poll up so that you can respond to it. And if for any reason you're not able to get to the poll, you're also welcome to respond in the chat, and we'll collect that information as well. Also, you'll notice we have a couple of different options today, whether you're a state education agency, a local education agency, an Indian tribe, an Indian organization, a tribal college or university, or a federally supported elementary school or secondary school for Indian students. But there's also an other option. If you select other, we would really appreciate if you join us over in the chat and share with us what type of entity are you representing today. So you can always just respond other in the poll and then pop that over into the chat. And it looks like we have a good amount of participants who have answered. I'll give you about 5 more seconds if you were mulling over which one is the best fit for you. And then we'll go ahead and close the poll. All right. Well, I'll share our results on the screen. It looks like the majority of us today are representing an Indian tribe, with pretty equal amounts across the other groups of Indian organization, tribal college or university, federally supported school, or other. So thank you for taking the time to respond to that poll. That information is super helpful for us. And now on with the rest of the information.
Okay, thank you so much. This webinar, this is very important to understand as you listen throughout today's session. It does not address every and all competition requirements or present all available information. And you will hear us repeat this quite often throughout, is that for full details, please be sure to read the notice inviting applications, also known as the NIA. That's going to have everything you need to write your application, and also the application package. So those 2 documents really need to be read before, during, and even after you finish and are checking your application before submission. Please read that in its entirety. Remember to follow the instructions on grants.gov and processes such as SAM, and we'll get into those a little bit. Also, just to note, some of you who may have applied to grants last year, please do not use those common instructions. They have been updated. So please take a look at the link and you will be able to go to the common instructions for applicants as of December 2022. So those are the most recent. So make sure that you're looking at that version. Also, some of you may already know this, that last year there was a huge change in reporting from DUNS numbers to the unique entity IDs, also known as UEIs. These were replaced back in April. And if you are currently using a DUNS number that is registered with SAM.gov, you have a corresponding UEI that is assigned. So you just need to look in there to get that reference number. You will need it. We do not accept the DUNS numbers anymore. So please make sure to check your UEI. And that is what you'll be using for grants.gov. If you do not have a UEI number, you will need to get one before you can apply. And here there are some links that we can put in the chat, and also when you can access these on the slide deck, which will be also posted to our webpage, but is an EUI transition fact sheet, and it should have everything that you need to obtain that or answer any questions you should have about that UEI. All righty, NATRI 2023. Next slide. The purpose of the demonstration program. So NATRI is housed under the umbrella of our demonstration program. And the purpose of that is to provide financial assistance to projects that develop, test, and demonstrate the effectiveness of services and programs. And this is all meant to improve the educational opportunities and achievement of Indian students attending preschool, elementary, and secondary students. So now the NATRI background. So you have the demonstration umbrella. Under that, this year, a joint explanatory statement accompanying the Consolidation Appropriations Act 2023 directed the department to use at least $2.75 million of funds available for the demonstration program for, quote, a teacher retention initiative to help address the shortage of Native American educators and expand their impact on Native American students' education. And that recommended that this initiative support teacher leadership models to increase the retention of effective, experienced Native American teachers. So that is the exact language taken out of that Appropriations Act, and NATRI was then born. So a majority of the tribal leaders expressed that teacher training and retention ought to be prioritized, starting with the option 3 of the Secretary Supplemental Priorities number 3. And that is building educator capacity by professional development for school leaders to improve the mastery of leadership skills, and for teachers in creating safe, healthy, inclusive, and productive classroom environments. We had some other tribal leaders express the importance of ensuring that teaching is seen as a viable profession for students to pursue. So in order to incorporate the tribal leader input, the department is including an invitational priority that allows applicants to propose a teacher retention initiative. And we will be getting to that in a few minutes when we talk about those priorities. Next slide. Now here is an overview, a snapshot of all the important points with our NATRI competition. The eligible applicants: we have State Educational Agency, also known as SEA, a local educational agency, LEA, that does include charter schools that are considered LEAs under your particular state law, Indian tribes, Indian organizations, tribal college or university, a federally supported elementary school or secondary school for Indian students. Those are the eligible applicants. We have an estimated funds available at 5.3 million. So we were only required a 2.75, but we also added funds. We have now 5.3 million estimated to be able to provide more grants. The length of the award is up to 60 months, okay? So you can have a grant up to 5 years if you would like. The estimated range is anywhere from 400,000 to 500,000, and that is per grant year. So that means an average mean of 450,000. And with that, we hope to fund about 11 to 12 different grant competitions. Now, the application deadline is July, this is important, July 24th at 11:59 and 59 seconds DC time. So please mark that in your calendar. And you don't want to wait till the last minute to upload that application. And we'll get into that in some of the tips in a minute. So a notice of intent to apply was requested. However, if you did not have a chance to send in your notice of intent, it's okay. And it's not held, it's something for planning purposes for us. So this was just an opportunity. If you would like to send in notice now, here's the information that you can submit to Donna Bussell, the competition manager, with what we need you to include. But please ignore that June 22nd deadline. You can submit it anytime you want. And don't feel that if you didn't, that you cannot apply. That is, you can. And also, if you intended to apply, but you just couldn't get there, there's no consequences to that either. Again, this is just for OIE planning. All right, we're going to talk about the priorities next. As an applicant, you must clearly identify the specific absolute priority and competitive preference priority and invitational priority in your proposed project abstract and address them throughout your narrative. Please note the next few slides will be a little text heavy. We're leaving it this way also because when we have the slide deck is published to our webpage, it does provide information needed to those potential applicants that are not able to watch the actual video. But yes, so bear with us. Good information though, I promise. Next slide. Okay, let's take a look at this absolute priority. Now, to meet this priority, an applicant must propose a project to develop, test, and demonstrate the effectiveness of services and programs to improve educational opportunities and achievement of Indian children and youth. So you're looking at proposed project that must be designed to ensure that A, teachers, principals, and other school leaders and other staff who serve Indian students have the ability to provide culturally appropriate and effective instructions and support to such students. Also, Indian students gain knowledge and understanding of Native communities, language, tribal histories, traditions, and cultures. And within that absolute priority, these projects must focus on one or more of the following priorities, one or more. One, activities that recognize and support the unique cultural and educational needs of Indian children and youth and incorporate traditional leaders. Number two, educational services that are not available to such children and youth in sufficient quantity or quality. And this can also include remedial instruction, all this to raise the achievement of Indian children in one or more of the subject of English, mathematics, science, foreign languages, art, history, and geography. Number three, comprehensive guidance, counseling, and testing services. Number four, high quality professional development of teaching professionals and paraprofessionals. That's the absolute priority, one or more of those four. Now, looking at competitive preference priorities. To meet this priority, an application must be submitted by an Indian tribe, Indian organization, school funded by Bureau of Indian Education or BIE funded school, a tribal college or university, TCU, that is eligible to participate in the demonstration grants for Indian children and youth. And you can either apply to this or not. It's a preference. If you do, you can either get 5 points. If you do not, obviously there's no in between. It's either 0 you didn't list that, or 5 you did. Now, this is important to remember. A group application submitted by a consortium that meets the requirements of 34 CFR 75127 through 129, and there's the links there. You can look at that. Or who is eligible to receive the preference priority if the lead applicant for the consortium is the Indian tribe, the Indian organization, the BIE funded school, or the TCU. We like our acronyms, don't we? Okay, so that's the competitive preference. So now it's the invitational priority. And we're inviting you to, as an applicant, to propose an educator retention initiative to help address the shortage of Native American educators and expand their impact on Native American students' education. Now, this initiative must clearly support teacher leadership models to increase the retention of effective, experienced Native American teachers who will assist in ensuring that Native American students gain knowledge and understanding of Native communities, language, tribal histories, traditions, and cultures, as outlined in the absolute priority for this competition. Now, if you choose to address this invitational priority, the applicant must propose a project that is designed to retain educators, particularly through building teacher leadership models, for teachers from traditionally underrepresented backgrounds in the communities they serve, and provide Native American teachers the opportunity to do one or more of the following. Number one, carry out leadership responsibilities that come with increased compensation, while also maintaining a role as classroom instructor. For example, leadership responsibilities could include A, collecting and analyzing data of student academic and social emotional outcomes, or professional outcomes, and taking actions to improve student outcomes or teacher outcomes, or professional learning informed by such data. Or B, evaluate and implement strategies aimed at addressing areas of demonstrated need in the school where the teacher is employed. And this is including increasing wraparound services, academic supports, it could be family engagement, or it could be community-based services. The second expectation is to be able to facilitate, lead, or engage in sustained professional learning with peers that is collaborative and based on evidence, research, and practice. That was a mouthful. A couple more of these for this invitational priority, please. Number 3, analyze socioeconomic, cultural, and historical contexts of students in their communities. And this could be including pedagogy, school policies, and school-based outreach to family and community organizations to create learning environments that are more inclusive of and responsive to students and teacher needs. And this also includes cultural, linguistic, and social economic needs. It's also meant to support teachers to effectively serve students with disabilities, English learners, and students who are linguistically, racially, and culturally diverse, economically disadvantaged, or historically underrepresented to increase their academic achievement of social emotional learning. 5, use, customize, or develop lesson plans, materials, and instructional resources to meet the unique needs of students to further students' academic achievement in social and emotional learning. There are 2 of the invitational priority definitions that you need to be careful because we have different programs within OIE. Sometimes a term can mean different depending on that statute. So please, for this purposes of NATRI, an educator is defined as an individual who is an early learning educator, teacher, principal, or other school leader, specialized instructional support personnel, and that could be a school psychologist, counselor, a school social worker, or an early intervention service personnel, could be a paraprofessional or faculty. Native American here for this competition is defined as a member of a federally recognized Indian tribe. I'm going to turn it over to your competition manager, Donna Bussell, for this section.
All right. We are going to discuss the performance measures of the grant. So we have Government Performance Results Act, or GEPRA measures, and these are the department's indicators of success for programs and for the NATRI program. So we are going to look over this GEPRA measure. So whenever we look over this, carefully consider this measure when you think about the approach to and the evaluation of your proposed project. This is looked at annually we'll get into that. But if you are awarded the grant, you will be required to provide data about your progress annually and then in final reports as well. So this program, our NATRI program, has one GEPRA measure. And this is, like I said, the department's GEPRA measure. You can't change this. You can't skip this. This is what you have to make sure you're capturing throughout the year, annually, and during your final performance report. This GEPRA measure is the total number of Native American educators employed as educators at the beginning of the grant period, who are still educators at the end of the performance period, if applicable. So we have that one GEPRA measure that you can't change, but you will have your own project measures. And these NATRI project measures are objectives that each applicant writes, and you include these in your application specific to your goals and your project. Each objective is required to be reported on each and every year of the grant. That's annually and during your final performance report. Typically, project objectives are reported as ratios. Think through how to write your project objectives to be reported on annually. For example, you want to have some SMART goals in mind. How are you going to report on these measures each year or by the end of the grant period? Are you going to collect those quarterly or once a semester? So make sure you have, think through all of those ways that you will measure those project objectives. And we will go to any questions that you have. I know there was one in the chat about if that estimated 400,000 to 500,000, is it for the whole 60 months of the project or if it's annually? That is annually. And Marie Rose, if you apply as a group of schools, do you each submit your UEIs? The primary applicant will indicate their UEI on the application. So if you have partnerships, you will not have to submit those UEIs, just the primary applicant. And to Eva's questions, all of your questions actually have either come up in our slides or they will be answered later on. But there is no set template of the narrative, but in the application package, there's a guide, and that application package is in grants.gov along with our announcement. And if you need a cover sheet, the grants.gov provides the overall cover sheet. The application package does recommend the table of contents for your narrative. The grants.gov will put everything in order. There is an abstract. I really recommend looking over that application package. And your other question, do we need to address all three priorities? There's only one priority. So our, and can go back to that priority slide, Sarah. So the absolute priority has all of these criteria. You do have to meet, your proposed project must be designed to ensure that these criteria such as A, B, I think we have, and then 1, 2, and 3, and 4 are met. So those two slides that we have our proposed project must focus one or more of the following areas. That's on the second page. So on the second one, the second one, you have to meet one or more of the following priority areas. And to the first, you proposed projects must be designed to ensure that those two are being met.
And then Donna, we had a new question come in about whether they are able to get a copy of this meeting to show their supervisor. And yes, this is being recorded. That recording will be posted on the OIE website. The first version of this, which is the same slides, it was just the first time we presented, that recording is already up if you want to access that even sooner to share with your supervisor, as well as the slide deck. And then we did have one other question. It said, at the last webinar, you mentioned that the award amount was 400 to 500,000 a year for a total of 2.5 million over 5 years. Is this correct? All official solicitation information lists total funds of 2,750,000 with 6 awards coming from those total funds. So we wanted to confirm before moving forward with our budget creation. And I believe it sounds like maybe they have confused the NATRI funding with one of the other open OIE grant competitions.
There was an announcement that did come out that discussed all three of our programs that we have competitions over: the STEP program, the NATRI program, and the NALRC. and each program is deemed a certain amount per program. And for this NATRI program, we have, and if you look at the overview, that's an estimated range of awards and estimated funds available. But if you look at the estimated range of awards, the 400,000 to 500,000, that's estimated what applicants will place annually for their grant. So that's every year, and then it's up to 6 months or 60 months. I'm sorry, not 6 months.
You were going to have them do quick projects. Well, and then I think the final question for this section, would the group grant, if they apply as a consortium, be the same amount of 400 to 450,000?
If you are applying with partners, then it's whatever you are placing in your budget that will work for your group, and as long as it's all going towards your program, your project goals and objectives. That's what you want the funding to reflect, is how you are going to reach those objectives of your grant overall annually. So that is our estimated range amount. You can put in more, you can put in less, however you deem fit for your project.
Great. Well, that brings us to the end of the, oh, I say that and then another one popped up. So if a TCU applies, is the NATRI GEPRA measure based on educators at that TCU or at the elementary and secondary schools where their graduates work?
That GEPRA measure is going to be based on your overall project objective. We don't have, let me look at that GEPRA measure.
Oh, I can bring back up the GEPRA measure as well.
Yeah. Let's see, did we indicate if this is Sabus Burns, did we indicate if this is just K through 12 teachers or just teachers?
Well, it would have to be whoever the main, you're going to have project goals and objectives. So you're going to have this GEPRA measure to respond to, and you're going to have your project goals and objectives. So if it depends on how your application or what your project entails. So if you are looking to, provide services to, paraprofessionals in training, for example, that could be your TCU. If you're looking at increasing retention in schools with primary students, that would be your focus, if that makes sense.
All right. And then our actual final question, I believe, is can the funds be, oh, sorry, there's actually two. Can the funds be used to support Native teachers to obtain graduate degrees in certain areas of study?
I don't think so. No, we have to look back at our absolute priority. This is to meet this priority. Go back to that. Teachers, principals, other school leaders and staff, and supporting students. And if we look to the second one, activities that recognize the cultural support, unique and educational need of students, educational services that are not available to such use in sufficient amounts, including remedial instruction, comprehensive guidance, counseling and testing services, high quality professional development of teaching professionals and paraprofessionals. It won't be, we don't have it specifically in this grant that Native teachers can go on to get their next degree, their graduate degree.
Thank you.
So it's not indicated in this grant.
And the follow-up to that was, can the TCU use funds for their own faculty?
If it's supporting your goals and objectives, So we have, where is that? And this is in our, it's 2 CFR 200 is our uniform guidance on cost provisions and the cost principles. So we look at that, but if you are utilizing your budget to achieve those goals and objectives of your grant, that's what you always want to come back to. And as long as it is, we'll go and look at the budget. So I would really advise that you look over, and I will drop this in the chat, the cost, the allowable cost.
Yeah, and that also will relate nicely to this next question, which is, it looks like the only unallowable expenses are video and surveillance equipment. Is that correct?
There are other unallowable expenses other than those 2 things. So again, look over the cost principles that I dropped in the chat of the uniform guidance. And as you are designing your program, your budget should really reflect the overall purpose of your program and your project. Is it supporting those objectives? Is your budget going to make sure you're achieving that GEPRA measure? All of the project objectives that you want to fulfill with getting this grant is making sure that those objectives are aligned with the NIA that we have, looking at the absolute priority, looking at the other pieces of the grant, looking at the background, the GEPRA measure, the overall purpose. And if you're going to be looking at the competitive preference points, if you want to include that to get more points, then that's how you will design your budget as well.
Right. And is there any technical assistance available to applicants beyond these webinars and guide?
The grants.gov does have a few help sites if you need help with submitting your application. But other than this webinar and the NIA, which you want to look at really closely, including those definitions really closely, the absolute priorities and the application guide, everything is in there. If you have a question that you are needing help on, you can always email me. We aren't going to be able to, look over your budget or anything like that, because this is a competition, but we'll be able to guide you to the specific spots in the NIA that you may have missed and skipped over or missed over something in the application guide. But we can guide you the best that we can. We can't tell you everything because this is a competition, but we can guide you for sure.
Great. Well, that concludes our questions for this section. For our participants, if you have additional questions, continue submitting those and we'll take them in our next Q&A section.
So we'll look at application requirements for FY 2023 and any subsequent year in which we make awards from the list of unabundant applications from this competition. Applicants must meet the application requirements, which are from section 6121 of the ESSA 20 USC 7441 and 34 CFR 263.22. And both of those links are also in the NIA, and they will be available to you as well in the chat. So these application requirements, each applicant must include a description of how Indian tribes and parents and families of Indian children and youth have been and will be involved in developing and implementing the proposed activities. Each applicant must include assurances that the applicant will participate at the request of the Secretary in any national evaluation of this program. You must include information demonstrating that the proposed project is evidence-based where applicable, or based on an existing evidence-based program that has been modified to be culturally appropriate for Indian students. You also must include a description of how the applicant will continue the proposed activities once the grant period is over. Another program requirement for all applicants is the ISD-EAA statutory hiring preference. This is awards that are primarily for the benefit of Indians are subject to the provisions of Section 7B of the ISD-EAA. That section requires that to the greatest extent feasible. That means you have exhausted all of your resources, and everyone that has come through, a grantee must give to Indian preferences and opportunities for training and employment in connection with the administration of the grant, and give to Indian organizations and to Indian-owned economic enterprises as defined in Section 3 of the Indian Financing Act of 1974, preference in the award of contracts in the connection with the administration of the grant. For purposes of this preference, an Indian is a member of any federally recognized tribe. Here are some important definitions. Please note that all definitions apply to this competition only. I'm not going to read through all of these, but again, you have to go read these definitions. Make sure that you are going and reading these and making sure they apply or are applicable to your grant in some way or another. There's the logic model, the definition as Ed defines it as Indian. So you can read the definition there. Demonstrates a rationale, goes along with the logic model as well. Indian organization, there's another important definition to look over. Those are one of our eligible applicants. So if you're wondering if you're an Indian organization that's eligible, please read that definition. The professional development, what is that? There's our definition if you plan on doing any professional development. Relevant outcome, which also goes with our other logic model and project component. That's an important definition. And evidence-based, you'll notice that we have a lot of evidence-based and rationales. That's very important when you're designing your project. Traditional leaders is defined. We have defined in our notice, in our NIA, that tribal college or university. There is a correction notice forthcoming that will add TCU in our eligible applicant list as well. If you notice in the original NIA, this was unintentionally left off, but the definition in the statute does include TCUs, but unintentionally we did not put that in our NIA. But there is a correction notice coming in, and we did add it to this PowerPoint presentation as TCUs are eligible applicants. And the definition is there as well.
Alrighty, we are going to turn now to the selection criteria, the meat of your narrative, and take a look at the relationship between the criteria, the absolute priority, and the elements in the application. A couple of notes and tips. Please be sure to respond fully to each selection criterion. The more succinctly stated and responsive to the questions and the criterion will help the reader be able to score it a lot more effectively. Do not lump your written response for all the sub-criteria into one piece, and you'll see as we start going through them. You want to keep your written responses for each sub-criterion separately. Do not skip any of the sub-criterion. You do not pick and choose which one to write to. You must address each sub-criterion fully and separately. Okay, and here there's about 7 selection criteria for this competition. And the first one is demonstrating a need for the project. And this is worth 5 points. And it essentially taking a look at the proposed project and how it considers the magnitude of the need, and up to you to explain how your services and your project plan to, or explain how much they have the need for this. Next slide. The second one is a fairly large portion, and it's worth 25 points. And this is all out of 100. It is the quality of your project design. So you're taking a look at the extent to which the goals and objectives and outcomes are clearly stated, specified, and measurable. The extent to which the design of the proposed project is appropriate to and will successfully address the needs of that target population. You're taking a look at the conceptual framework underlying the proposed research and demonstration activities and the quality of that framework. Also include the proposed project, how it's designed to build capacity and yield results that will extend well beyond the period of federal financial assistance, and the extent to which the design of the proposed projects reflect up-to-date knowledge from research and effective practice. And you can see the breakdown of each of those sub-criteria and the points that they're worth. And remember, you must answer and address each and every one of these. Next slide. The next one is also a large one, worth 31 points, and that's going to be the quality of project services. So here, you're taking a look at the quality and sufficiency of strategies that you're using to look at ensuring equal access and treatment for the eligible project participants who are members of groups that have been traditionally underrepresented based on race, color, national origin, gender, age, or disability. You're also looking at the extent to which the training or professional development services to be provided are likely to alleviate the personnel shortages that have been identified. And also the extent to which the training or professional development services to be provided by the project are sufficient quality, intensity, and duration to lead to improvements in practice among the recipients of those services. Again, that is for 31 points. The next one is the quality of the project personnel that you're proposing to use, and that's worth 15 points. There are 3 sub-criteria. The extent to which the applicant encourages applications for employment from persons who are members in groups that have been traditionally underrepresented based on race, color, national origin, gender, age, disability. Also looking at the qualifications and training and experience of the project director or that principal investigator. And then the last one for this criteria is the qualifications and training and experience of any other key project personnel that you may have working with the project director on this grant. Slide. Adequacy of resources, and this is worth 8 points. The extent to which the budget is adequate to support your project. You want to make sure that within your project goals and objectives, that your budget is carefully reflecting those activities and that you've taken into consideration the cost and breakdown of those items in those activities. And you're looking for the potential of the incorporation of project purposes, activities, or benefits, an ongoing program of the agency or organization at the end of federal funding. So altogether, that one is 8 points. The next one is the quality of your overall management plan for 10 points. And it's looking at the objectives of the proposed project. And you're taking a look at time. Are you planning? Are you within that budget? Are you including clearly defined responsibilities, timelines, and milestones for accomplishing the project tasks? Again, it clearly present your information so the reader who is reading and scoring your application can easily identify these. And that goes with all of the selection criteria. And also within this section, you're going to be looking at the time commitments involved of the project director and any other key personnel, that they're adequate and they meet the objectives of your proposed project. And then the last one is project evaluation, and this is for 6 points. And of course, it's looking at which methods of evaluation provide for examining the effectiveness of the implementation of the project strategies and the extent to which that evaluation will provide guidance about those strategies suitable for potential replication in other settings. So that's it, 100 points. Those are your selection criteria to which you will be writing. Now we're at another section of questions.
So the first question is, can we send our teachers to symposiums and put that in the budget?
So
That is, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dawn.
it goes back to your program objectives. If you are designing your program and your project around different professional development and leadership for your teachers, and it supports those objectives, and you guys meeting, the applicant and the grantee meeting those objectives, you can put that in your budget and your application.
Next question, is there a minimum number of students or teachers that need to be served by the proposed program?
There's not a minimum number, but we do want to see growth per year. So if that number is growing per year, that's called substantial progress, and that's what we're looking for.
And then the next one, they said that the second criteria slide showed it's worth 25 points, but it added up to 30. And so we can go back. That is correct.
Mhm.
We
get
can
back to you on
check
that
on
one.
this, yeah, and answer this one shortly, because we'll need to pop back into the documentation to ensure we give you the best answer. So we will come back shortly with an answer to that one. The next question being, to expand on that question, can the objective of the program be to increase Native teachers at the TCU?
You want to increase teachers at the college? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that does seem to, they're saying yes, that is what they would like to do.
I don't think that supports the absolute priority. So go back and read that absolute priority, because I mean, if we go back and look at that absolute priority, Sarah, it states, and I got it pulled up here too. The absolutely priority states teachers, principals, other school leaders, and other staff who serve Indian students have the ability to provide culturally appropriate and effective instruction for Indian students to gain knowledge, and our other absolute, that's what these proposed projects must ensure. And our overall purpose, you can go to the next one. The different activities that supports Indian children and youth. Our overall purpose of this demo program, and you can read the background. The background will help you as well in the NIA. And the purpose of the program and the demonstration program is to provide financial assistance to projects that develop, test, and demonstrate the effectiveness of services and programs to improve the educational opportunities and achievement of Indian students attending preschool, elementary, and secondary schools. So providing the TCU, the teachers at the college, I would go back and read that absolute priority.
And they were stating
So,
that also some TCU serve as early college for high school students.
yeah, and Lindsay, we have Lindsay on, who is our program attorney, and she'll be able to answer that better than I can. So we'll go back to that question that I was just on, Sarah, about the teachers at the university.
Yeah.
Let's see if she's available. But reading the purpose of the demonstration program and the background and lining up those absolute priorities.
Well, the next question is the criteria mentioned training or professional development. Would this refer to paraprofessionals who will get trained in a teacher ed program at a university?
I just put the definition of professional development there, so you can take a look at that, how professional development is defined.
And our program attorney did state that, you know, there's, we don't think that the AP includes increasing the number of university teachers. And she is going to follow up and we will have that question. So if you can email me, whoever asked that question, your email, and put that question again in the chat for me, we will get back to you with a answer.
All right, and then to go back to the selection criteria question, I did check that in the NIA. So if we pop back, it is a total of 25 points. The criteria breakdown number 3, that is a typo. That should be up to 5 points instead of up to 10 points for still that total of 25 points. So we'll make that correction and update the slide deck on the website, but do know that is still just a grand total of 25 points, each criteria within this being up to 5 points. All right, I do not see any other questions in the chat or in the Q&A, so it looks like we are good to move on to our next section.
And we are going to go over our application instructions. And again, there is an application package in our grants.gov. And this is your guide to all of the required components of the application. Whenever you go to grants.gov, you can, there's the opportunity number, ed-grants-052323-001, or you could put in the Native American Teacher Retention Initiative, the Office of Indian Education, however you want to search for it. This is the quickest way, by putting in that opportunity number. And the following information that we are about to present is abbreviated from the application package and does not substitute for reading it in its entirety. So make sure you go and read that application package that's in grants.gov. Within the NATRI NIA of FY 2023 in the applications instructions package, you will find reference to common instructions for applicants to Department of Education discretionary grant program that's published in Federal Register on December 7th, 2022. And it is also available at that link. That link is also, I believe, in our common instructions. Well, it's available in the application package, and the common instructions give detailed guidance on FAM and other common elements of the application. So this is an electronic application checklist. Make sure that all of these are filled out and ready to submit. These are the preliminary documents, the SF 424 form, the supplemental information for SF 420 form, the budget information, And there is the correct budget information on our grants.gov. It's for the non-construction programs, Form 524, and the project abstract. And in our application package, there is a kind of a guide and a checklist of what your abstract needs. Here's other application checklists. These are the other parts that need to be in your application: the project narrative, a budget narrative. So not just your budget, you will also have to have a narrative for every year you are wanting the grant up to 60 months. So don't miss that. Other attachments, your indirect cost rate. If you are claiming indirect cost rate, you must include an up-to-date indirect cost rate agreement within your application. There is an administrative cost limit waiver request, if applicable. There's an intergovernmental review, if applicable. Resumes of your project director, your certifying official, and anyone else that are in lead roles. Bibliography, signed consortium agreement, if applicable. Part 7 is the assurances and certifications. Disclosure of lobbying activities, SF-LLL form, the grants.gov lobbying form, the GEPA statement, section 427, and assurances for non-construction programs. If you don't have any of these assurances or any things that we will, it could possibly exclude your grant from being to go through to the next level. This is the standard form that corresponds to instructions of the SF-424 Federal Assistance Form. For item 9, be sure that the applicant type you identify in this form matches how you self-identify in the application instructions. For example, if you're a tribal government and you're a federally recognized tribal government, make sure you click on that, the right box, the right applicant type. The standard form includes corresponding instructions for the Ed Supplemental SF-424 form. Your budget form, use Ed Form 524 Section A. Section B is non-federal funds are optional. Remember that you must provide all requested budget information again for each of the 5 years, up to the 60 months of the project and total column in order to be considered for federal funding. No more than 5% of the funds awarded for a grant may be used for administrative costs. This is the 524 form that we are talking about, and make sure all your budget information is entered here and matches with your narrative and also corresponds to those objectives. Make sure that this is corresponding to those objectives and how you're going to meet those objectives using that budget, the corresponding budget. And the box below is the indirect cost information. If you are claiming indirect cost, then this needs to be filled out. The yellow box that is highlighted below, where it says indirect cost information, with the correct date. And you need to make sure that that IDC form is also submitted within the application. The budget narrative serves as Section C of Ed Form 524. Be sure to complete an itemized budget breakdown and narrative again for each of the proposed project up to 60 months. Review and edit to ensure the total funding listed each year in your budget narrative match the total amounts entered in the form. Identify the nature and the amount of the proposed expenditures. Provide sufficient detail for your readers to understand. The abstract should not exceed 2 double-spaced pages and should identify the applicant, including all consortium members if applicable, and should concisely describe the following: your title, the institution, the state of the official name of the applicant's tribe, institution, or entity. Eligibility, state the eligibility category that you meet, the applicant meets. Partners, identify any SCA and or LEA partners. Identify the priority, indicate the absolute priority, which every applicant should. And if you are claiming the CPP or the IP of the competitive priority or the invitational priority that your project is addressing. A brief description of the proposed project goals and objectives. Make sure you get all of that in a 2 double-spaced pages. The project narrative attachment form, and again, these are all in your application package. No more than 30 pages for the application narrative, and use the following standards. The standards are also in the NIA, and you can look that over. Please make sure that is being followed. Other attachments, again, resumes, IDC rates, bibliography, consigned a consortium agreement if applicable. And the IDC rate, again, if you are claiming indirect cost rate, make sure the updated IDC is included in this grant application. The assurances and certifications, the disclosure of the lobbying activities, that's optional. Grants.gov lobbying form certification regarding lobbying, and the GEPA statement in section 4227 GEPA. And here is a general overview of GEPA, section 427. Its purpose is to ensure equitable access to and participation in federally assisted programs for all beneficiaries. It is not limited. There's 6 barriers: gender, race, national origin, color, disability, age. And for more information about GEPA 427, please visit oesc.ed.gov/GEPA/. And we aren't going to, this is going to be in your slides, but we're not going to review everything. We would like for you to go and review that for yourself. There's the original form and the updated, what was updated in that section 427. There are 4 questions for GEPA that you applicants must respond to each question on this form. And there's a simple error message that pops up if the GEPA is not updated or answered. Here are some resources that we placed in the slides for you, and you will be getting copies of these slides. They will be on our website. Here is application requirements, and this is where in the application you can address them. For the assurances that you will participate at the request of the secretary in any national evaluation of this program, please upload a separate attachment of these assurances. It can be a statement, it can be a memo of your organizations, but make sure that you address these assurances. For the application requirement of information demonstrating that the proposed project is evidence-based where applicable or is based on existing evidence-based programs that has been modified by culturally appropriate for Indian students, this can be included in your summary in your application abstract. You can also address these under quality of the project design subcriterion 1 and subcriterion 2. The application requirement of a description of how the applicant will continue the proposed activities once the grant period is over. You may address these under quality of project design subcriterion 4. Applications are going to be screened for eligibility. Notice of ineligible will be sent by email. All eligible applications will be reviewed by a peer review panel. It's independently read and scored by 3 peer reviewers. That is not OIE. And then there are panel discussions. Ranking order of average final scores are by OIE based on the peer reviewers' scores. Compressed review window help the reviewers with clear applications. Again, the application deadline is July 24th, 2023 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. If you do not get your application in before this time, it will not accept it. Review of resources, we'll turn it over to Donna Sabitz-Byrne.
Great, thank you. This next section is giving you all kinds of goodies that you can take away with and help you in the development of your application. And looking at, again, we mentioned this earlier, read the NIA backwards and forwards and upside down. A lot of the questions that you may come up with can be found in the NIA or the application package, which Donna just reviewed. Make sure you take a look at those instructions. And again, before, during, and after, so you are prepared with what needs to be written or what needs to be consulted with ahead of time, so you're not surprised as you're during your writing and even after. Sometimes there are different sections that different people write, so you want to make sure that it comes together and flows nicely. Think about your reader who's going to be reading these. And while you're writing, and double check your budget. Someone can be filling out that 524 budget form while somebody else is doing the budget narrative. Make sure that your numbers are matching. Start the grants.gov SAM UEI registration process as early as possible. It is heavy grant season right now, and grants.gov can be easily bottlenecked. And you don't want to wait until that last day or last 2 days, because I have seen applications get caught up in grants.gov because it's just taking the system longer to process everything. So please don't wait until that last day to submit. Make it easier. I kind of alluded to this earlier. Make it easy for the reviewer to find and to understand your information. Look at that selection criteria. Make sure you're addressing each sub-criteria very clearly. They look for evidence to support this within your application narrative. So make sure that you're providing that in an understandable format. Proofread, proofread, proofread. You don't want your readers to have to guess or read between the lines. You want to be upfront, very clear, and grammatically sound. And then submitting applications using grants.gov. Grants.gov has just a plethora of resources. I was on there not too long ago and took a look at, they have so many different resources and questions and FAQs and any kind of trainings that you can ask for as far as someone who's writing an application. So please check it out. They've got a lot to offer. Next slide. Again, it's essential that you start that submission process early because there's a lot of work to be done. Primary information about SAM is available at www.sam.gov. To provide additional help with obtaining and registering that UEI, we have the link that was presented earlier, and also some user guides and demonstration videos as far as getting your SAM registration. We also provide that for you here with some frequently asked questions. If you are trying to upload your hard work application, please do not contact your competition manager, Donna Bessel, nor myself. We don't have anything to do with grants.gov, and we would not be able to help you. So here we provided every possible way that we could think of that you could contact them. Here's a phone number. We've got an email. We've got like a self-service knowledge-based portal where you can provide or ask your questions. And there's also a link at the bottom of this slide that goes back to those applicant frequently asked questions that could possibly answer those as well. So hopefully one of these ways you'll be able to get your questions or problems solved with grants.gov submission. This is the second of 2 pre-application webinars. As Sarah indicated and Donna indicated earlier, they will be posted, and we did provide that link earlier on in the chat. And any updates will be provided on the demonstration program page there again on how to apply. And it's going to take a look like this. When you get in there, this is what it's going to look like. You'll be able to click on the webinar 1, click on webinar 2, and they'll also have the slide decks available for both sessions as well. So you can share them with whomever you need. Your application package again is here. Grants.gov is there. The NATRI opportunity number that Donna talked about again is here. And SAM registration is here. We want to make sure that you have your resources over and over again. Make sure you have access. And Donna put this in the chat earlier, and it's very, very important that 2 CFR Part 200. It's known as the uniform guidance, and this is your tell-all about allowable costs. So when you're developing that budget, please check these and read through these to find out some of those unallowable costs, and don't include them. We do, for those grants that are awarded, we do take a look at the budgets, and we do cut if there are unallowable expenses. So please make sure that you are referencing that uniform guidance. The Federal Register also has the cost principles we have in a link there. And Funding 101 Basics, we also have some information there. Logic models, we have all kinds of logic model resources for you. If you would like to use that and embed that within your application, click here for lots of different choices. There are video tutorials there at grants.gov. Recordings again on the pre-application webinars are available at our webpage. And lastly, contacting us, your competition manager is Donna Bussell. There's her email address. My email address is also Donna Savis Burns. You can click that as well. And once again, we will give you that link to the NIA for your convenience at the bottom of this slide. That's going to also be your tell-all on how to write and what to answer possible questions.
Great. And to wrap up with our final questions, we did have someone ask again about a copy of the slide deck. The slide deck is already posted online at the link that you see in the chat. And I'll post it again here. Let me hit enter. So that it's right there at the bottom of the chat. That's where you can access the last recording and the slide deck. And then by the start of next week, we'll have up this recording as well. So you'll be able to access all of that on the OIE website, which is also listed in the chat. We did have 2 other questions. Our school has an education program and residential program. Does this apply to both or just the education program? And I know Donna responded in the Q&A module as far as the definition of educator and using that as your reference there. And then it appears that universities other than TCUs may not be eligible to apply. And you'll see that Donna Bussell posted again that list of eligible applicants.
And in the NIA as well, each one of those are defined. A state educational agency as eligible, a local education agency, including charter schools that are considered LEAs under state law, an Indian tribe, an Indian organization, a federally supported elementary school or secondary school for Indian students, and a tribally college or university. Those are your eligible applicants.
And at this time, I don't see any other questions in our Q&A or in the chat. So I think we have come to the end of our pre-application webinar. Again, if you have further questions, you can reach out via email. The webinar link, as far as the recording, will be up beginning of next week. But like I said, the past recording and the slide deck are already up. So you have access to those already. We thank you for taking the time to join us today, and good luck on your grant applications.
Good luck
Thank you.
very much.